just kidding. Ruben Cubillos. I met him at the Phoenix Cinco de Mayo festival. They came and played for a very large group here in the Phoenix, Arizona metro. And let me just kind of do a little bit of intro for him. Basically, he's with the Latin Breed. In my view, the Latin Breed members are Texas legends, Chicano music legends, and they're going to continue to be legends. And this upcoming year, they're going to be celebrating their 50th anniversary. So these guys have been around for quite some time. A lot of Tejanos, Chicanos are very familiar with their work. Ruben is very special, in my opinion. I had a couple of conversations with him, and one of the things that has intrigued me about him as an artist is he's done a lot of work for other legends, such as Selena, Juan Gabriel, Los Musicales, David Lee Garza, Intocable, Ramon Ayala, Freddie Fender, Vicente Fernandez, the 29th Tejano Music Awards, and other Latin comedy stars. Welcome to the show, Ruben.
Wow, I feel like I don't have enough money in my wallet to pay you for that intro, man. That sounded great, but I really appreciate it. Muchas gracias. Thanks for the invitation, man. DeeDee, we appreciate every minute and every communication that we have with our raza, because it's very special to have radio and other media, social media, communicating exactly who we are, what we feel, what we're up to. Estamos más conectados ahora que nunca en nuestra vida. Y for some reason, I don't know why, because I'm not a psychologist, but we just don't talk to each other. We just don't share anything, you know. We just amontonamos todo, you know. We keep everything inside. This is mine, you know. And communication for me has always been a very special privilege, maybe because I grew up with my two great-grandmothers, and they were very simple people, very humble people. That's how they communicated, with their words, their wisdom, their cariños, you know, their touches, their feelings, their everything. So I don't think technology has a right to take that away from us, especially, you know, the brown people, because that's who we are. You know, we are about camaraderie. We are about, you know, doing good and, you know, hard work and believing in God and, you know, doing, for the most part in our lives, we're not angels, but we try to, you know, toe the line. And so anytime that there's an opportunity to discuss or to communicate or just to share un dicho, un chiste o algo, para mí es muy especial.
Mm-hmm. Can you give a shout out to the band members? I am. Can you give a shout out to the band members? I just kind of want to have you name each of the band members that are currently playing with the Latin Breed as you approach a 50th anniversary.
I would really like to. I would really like to, but there's not enough in the budget to do that. So, no te creas. Let me say hello to some of those guys that are listening. I know that for a fact. I called Charlie Rodriguez. Charlie Rodriguez is from Fort Worth, Texas. Don't hold that against him. He is the actual band leader and sax player as well. And Charlie has been with us here, you know, doing everything from bottle washing to whatever it takes, you know, to make it happen. Charlie's there strong every night. Even though we're a little disconnected in time, technology allows us to be instant every day. So Charlie and I, we probably chat like, I don't know, 15 times a day, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then
hi, Charlie.
Out of 10 guys in the band, there's 5 of them that are still original. When I mean original, let me define that a little bit. These are musicians that have been with the Latin Breed. Like you said, you know, next year in 2019, we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary. So in 50 years, you got to think we have guys that have been here since '69. We've got guys that had started here like in 1973, 74, when I was graduating from high school. And then we've got the newcomers, you know. So we're a little bit of everybody. And my role is different today than it has been at other times. And I'll explain that later on.
Okay.
But for right now, we want to say hello to Frank Pettis. He's basically the arranger. He holds on to all the music. He's the gatekeeper of the music, and he also plays trumpet. Also on stage is Danny Pettis on sax. He plays saxophone. He's been around for a long, long time, very seasoned sax player from the 70s. On the other sax, like I said, is Charlie Rodriguez, and then a trumpet player that joins us from Crystal City, Texas. That's Steve Sanchez right there. And on the other side of the bandstand, joining us from 1969, he's been around and you know, off and on. But he's the icon of the Latin breed. Anywhere you go, you'll see Richard. He stands out. His name is Richard Solis. He's the one and only who stands out. He's the tallest, always has been, of all the guys. And he's basically the guy who sets the tempo every single night. He's the meter. He's the guy who is driving the force here behind the Latin breed. And also on guitar, we've got Steve Velasquez. Steve Velasquez is not only a guitar player, he's an amazing arranger. He's got a phenomenal artillery of just fingers, man. This guy can play a guitar just beautifully, whether it be acoustic or electric. He's all about finesse, all about music, all about heart. And his compadre, and literally, they live down the street from each other. They live in a little town called Seguin, Texas. That's Julian Carrillo. Julian has been around, same thing, since the second band of the Latin breed in the early 70s or the mid 70s. And Julian has been right there, instrumental with all the other guys contributing. And he continues to probably make us laugh more on the road than anybody in the band. This guy is he's a clown. He's a cut up right there. Joining us on bass is a very cool guy. Every night, no matter where we play, no matter where the gig is at, what I love about Stanley Revillas on bass is his smile. This guy's always smiling. He's grooving. He's just in a zone. He's having a great old time, and they don't make him like Stanley anymore. Not only can he play La Onda real well, he's got his jazz down. He's got almost any genre that you can think of, whether it be oldies or country. I think I've not seen him in a symphony yet, but that would not surprise me if I did find him out there. And basically, that's the breed, you know. That's the breed for right now. And, you know, many times, many things happen on the road, many situations in 50 years, you know. So we have an army of substitutes, what we call the subs, you know. And the subs come in here just like in any other team, and they have to, you know, do their thing and support it because they understand that Latin breed is like an institution, you know. It's a brotherhood. It's a field. It is something of privilege that once you're in and considered a brother, you know, you hold that standard as high as you can for the longest time possible out there. So there's been many, many people that have crossed this path, but I got to tell you, these are the brothers that are holding it together today, and it's a privilege to not only represent them, but to speak on their behalf as well.
Well, just kind of wanted to give a shout out to Rick Reyes. He's playing with Tierra, and he did have a couple of questions via a Chicano music radio show host. His name is Chico Manqueros. So shout out to Chico and to Rick. And so basically, here's the question Chico has for you, Ruben. Number one.
Hey, hold on. Before you give me the question, let me tell you a real quick story.
Okay.
We met Rick a couple of weeks ago when we played in Phoenix, and I mean, he literally scared me because I had to do one of those like second looks because he looks exactly like a real good friend of ours. We used to call him. His name is Raul Flores, but his name was Bull. We always nicknamed him Bull. Bull passed away a couple of years ago, but when I saw Rick, I was like, wow, look at this guy, the long hair, you know, his body build. As I was just mesmerized by you know, his look. So we had to go over there and say hello to him. Real friendly guy. And our respect to Tierra and our brothers over there in Califas. We're always looking for an opportunity to work together. So go ahead, ask your question.
Well, he did send me and text message me a question. Rick did. I'll get back to Chico in a minute, but Rick wants to know when you guys are going to tour in California.
Hold on, let me grab. Let's see. Hold on. My crystal ball is. It's at the shop right now, so I don't really know a date. But we are working on some dates right now with a good friend of ours out in Sacramento and in the Bay Area. We don't have a date, but as soon as we do, please come and join us on Facebook. Follow us there. You know, be like Chicle. You know, stick to us, and we'll let you know exactly where we're going. But our mission this year is to be out in California to reconnect with the baby boomer and all the people that have followed the Latin breed and appreciate, have an affinity for our music. I tell you, we love meeting people from all crossroads of this country because we know exactly what they represent. They are us, you know. We are them, except we don't live in Texas or we don't live down the street.
Yep.
We live a few blocks away, but, you know, we still love the music. We still have something in common, including our culture. So while I don't have a direct answer, just please know that we are working very hard, very diligently to get out there. And if you hear of a gig, mochate.
There you go, Rick. There's your answer. Now, back to Chico Manqueros, who runs his own Chicano music radio show. Here's question number one. He only asked two. But question number one, in the early 70s, your albums contained covers of two songs that were more on the Latin soul side rather than straight Tejano. First one was a rendition of Joe Batan's Funky Mambo, When You're Down and Out, and a rendition of Dance to My Mambo by Malo. Both of these tunes featured Jimmy Edward. What was the idea, or here's a question, what was the idea behind recording these tunes, and were these artists and tunes being listened to by Tejanos?
I only know part of the answer because I consider myself one of the newcomers. I came to the Latin breed. I've known the Latin breed since probably 1974 when I graduated from high school. I was from El Paso, Texas. But I had already met some of these guys previously when they were with Sonny and the Sunliners because that's where they came from. And so we kind of had established a relationship. By the time that I actually uprooted and left my hometown of El Paso to come and play with Latin breed, and I was very fortunate to find a spot as a lead singer there, and fill some great shoes, by the way. That was in 1980 when I came here. So we're missing 10 years right there. What I can tell you is a secondary story and basically the vibe that's from the inside, only because I wasn't there. But I wish this is where, you know, Richard Solis would be very handy because he's got the true story behind it. All I can tell you is that the Latin breed has never been your polka band, you know, has never been that traditional, okay, you know, we're going to stay in this little box and all we're going to do is polkas and, you know, boleros and so on and so forth. Good music belongs to good musicians. Good musicians are always seeking more. They want to be influenced. I've had this conversation with a founder. The founder was, in 1969, was Rudy Guerra. And Rudy Guerra is spearheaded this whole idea. And it wasn't until the mid-'70s when he finally exited and went out to serve the Lord. And he's still out there in the world, you know, delivering the word of God, you know. So kudos to Rudy for being who he is. But he left such a big footprint here that the idea from this leader was to open up your heart, open up your mind, you know, and listen to whatever's out there. It's music, especially back in the 70s and 80s, wasn't about fashion. It wasn't about image and tattoos and sunglasses. It was about music. That's it. The core, the heart and soul of music is knowing that it moves you. It's got a spirit. It's got a groove. It's got a vibe. It's got a color, you know. And I can tell you of all these 10 guys on the bandstand, they know that. They have that, running seamlessly through themselves. That's how they measure themselves, and that's how they work in this zone. So, yeah, when they listen to Joe Batan, or they listen to Malo, or they listen to Fania All-Stars, or whatever, I can tell you that it was always very educational, especially in the long trips. You're talking about being in the middle of Texas and San Antonio to go to Colorado or go to California or Washington State. And that's a lot of miles, man, in a van. We're not talking about no Prevost bus and air conditioner. We're talking about, a nice Dodge van with maybe AC and pulling a trailer with all your sound equipment. You get to learn many things, and one of the things that you learn is how to appreciate good music, because someone would always bring a cassette. Somebody always had something, different vibes, different whatever it was, jazz, whether it be a little bit of everything, So the educational process came from there, and I can only tell you that the influence of many, many musicians and bands and groups made a difference here, and that was always an element of borrowing, of inspiration, and saying, okay, you know what, why don't we do this, or why don't we do that? That was the most important thing. Why not investigate? Why not, go outside the box, before even the term came up? So I hope that answered part of the question, but that's the way I know it.
Okay. Question number 2 is... Get it here. I just had it, Ruben. Where'd it go? There it is. Your band has long been known as the Chicano Tejano Tower of Power, who was the architect of creating your horn-driven sound. And during that same era, bands like the Tortilla Factory and Little Joey La Familia used their horn section to be versatile with the material they were performing and recording. Who was the Latin breed's primary influence in structuring your sound?
Well, that was me, of course. No, not really. I wish I could tell you just one name, but I got to tell you, it's a collaboration. This is a collective. Okay, the Latin breed should have been named collective early on, because it's a collective of individual minds and ideas. And when was the last time you knew a band that had horns and actually gave the rhythm section a shot at producing the intro to a song, or even just collaborating at that point, at that level? Well, the Latin breed was such a band. They were all very gifted in many ways. There were some structures, obviously, but it was a little bit of, whether it be Richard Solis or Steve Velasquez or Julian, as well as Frank and Charlie De Leon back then. It came from almost anywhere, and it was an open idea. So some things worked, some things didn't work. That's why they call it breaking the rules, because exactly that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to experiment. You're supposed to elaborate and not be cookie cutter, not be the next same thing that was already there before,
Yeah.
So, again, I hope that answers the question, but I can only tell you that the leadership started at the top was Rudy Guerra, and obviously he had a great impact, not only musically, but spiritually, and also on the brother side, the vibe. He was a very positive individual. All the stories that I've heard of him, I never performed with him. I wasn't on the road with him, so I can't give you that one-on-one. But there's so many stories of him, of everything from either added pay or something, this gentleman just had a huge heart. I interviewed him about 4 years ago on camera, and he basically told me that he wanted to prove to America that, just because we're Chicanos didn't mean that we weren't talented, or we couldn't be like Chicago, or we couldn't be the next Blood, Sweat, and Tears, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? It was about music. It was about a level playing field. That's what it was about.
Let's talk about you. Well, before we talk about you, how can a person reach you, the Latin breed, to, sort of pull and bend your ear to tour their city, wherever, as you approach the 50th year anniversary next year? How can they reach you?
Very simply, two different avenues. Number one, definitely we're going to utilize Facebook as one of our most powerful tools. You can go to Facebook and look up the Latin Breed, and then there's a button there that says Call Now. That'll reach me, and my number is 210-722-1392. That's 210-722-1392. And the other way to do it is just stay in touch with us. I mean, you can. I think almost anyone in the business will know where you can find us. There's always other people, including Charlie Rodriguez, that you can reach in Fort Worth. It's well publicized out there. You know, our number is online somewhere. You know, and it comes back to Joe Chapa, or it comes back to Charlie Rodriguez, or myself, Ruben Cubillos. And I got to tell you, right now is the right time to plan, because we want to fill up the calendar. We want to make sure that we go everywhere that we can. It's been over 30, 40 years almost since we've not returned to Colorado or to Washington State, or, you know, stay away from Texas for about 2 to 3 weeks, you know, at a time. Mm-hmm. It's logistically impossible now because of so many things that we have. But the one thing I've learned through the years is that hace más el que quiere que el que puede. If you have a strong desire to something, you will achieve it, and we'll find a way. You know, we'll make it work one way or another. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. You know, it's got to be a mutual. It's got to be a mutual understanding where everybody that's going to come to this performance will leave with a greater excitement and understanding of the evolution of Chicano music and Tejano music and that whole movement of the brown people.
Yep. Chicano power. Listen, I want to break away from the Latin Breed and talk about you and some of the work that you've done. I know you've worked with other legends like Selena, Vicente Fernandez, Ramon Ayala, my God. But, you know, you're approaching the 50th anniversary, and, mm-hmm. you know, I know you've worked with 150 artists out there with regard to designing mm-hmm. and helping their music path. What was it like seeing a woman, the queen of Tejano music, Selena, grow up, and then boom, she's here one day, and boom, she's gone the next day? What was your experience as a Tejano musician with regard to seeing this bright light and working with her? Can you tell us a little bit about that and some of the work that you've done with artists?
Yes. Let me give you the Selena thing first, only because I'm going to break it down in two parts. The first part was getting to meet the Quintanilla family, and that was while I was at art school in Houston. There was a ballroom that we would all go play. All Tejano bands would go play at the Starlight Ballroom. Mm-hmm. The Starlight Ballroom was in the back. In the front, there was like a little cafe thing. So 2 to 3 bands would play, you know, and one would open, and you'd go in there, do your load-in during the day. The bands that lived further away, like Corpus, like them, they would come in, you know, a little bit earlier and basically, you know, kill some time because they were going to open up for everybody. But that's where I got to meet Abraham Quintanilla. And back then, you know, I would say I would call them the kids. They were kids. They were youngsters. Selena must have been about, I don't know, I'm guessing because I really don't know, but she might have been 13, 14 years old, something like that.
Wow.
But I remember them performing, you know, going and doing their sound check and, you know, doing what they had to do. He was traveling in a Chevy van with a trailer, like all of us. You know, everybody had a van and a trailer. And then sometimes you had to borrow, you know, an amp or a guitar or something, and, you know, and it was always a give and take kind of deal. But that's how I met Selena. She opened up for this one group, and I got to see her live, and I was like, okay, well, you know, young group, just like any other young group that goes out there, you know. And like I said, what I remember the most out of that day was spending some time with Abraham, and we had a lot of common friends, you know, in the business. By that time, I had left the Latin Breed to go to art school, but we were still talking about shop, you know, we're still talking about La Onda and, you know, Little Joe and, you know, who's up and coming, who's going to give me a break, you know, the things that he was challenged with that, you know, this is a very macho industry. So those are the things I remember early on. By the time I got to see Selena again, by this time I had already graduated and moved back to San Antonio. And I was working in advertising, one of the largest advertising agencies in the United States called Sosa & Associates. And there I was able to work with Selena. During the day, I was working with the ad agency, but at night I would go home and I would freelance for Capitol Records or Sony Discos or Virgin Records or any of the independent labels. And it just so happened that I met Jose Bejar, who became the president of Capitol EMI Latin. At the time, I didn't know how big EMI was or Capitol. I mean, everybody knows that Capitol is big, you know, with Sinatra and the Beatles and so on and so forth, you know.
Yeah.
So that's very impressive, but at the same time, you know, here's this Cubano who is about as young as I am, and he's got to make a big splash. So all I'm going to do is share what I know from the inside, you know. And I remember having a meeting with him right before at the Tejano Music Awards, and he says, like anybody else that I have had some adventures with, you know, if I make money, you're going to make money. And I was like, oh, okay, that went, okay, here comes that song again. But I got to tell you, this gentleman was true to his word. He was very, very articulate. He was very focused on building a company from the bottom up. I had worked a little bit with Jose Bejar while he was at CBS Records, and we were producing an album for CBS Records at the time, and for Little Joe. So knowing Jose a little bit, you know, gave me some confidence, and I would do, you know, my work during the day. And during the day, Selena got, you know, chosen as a spokesperson to endorse, you know, Coca-Cola. I mean, she was perfect. She was young, articulate. She was very energetic, you know, just like the brand, you know. So I got to work with her during the day on that. She already knew me from the music side. We had, when I returned back from going to art school, I came back and joined the Latin Breed one more time. And we had performed together in Brownsville. So that's, you know, that's how she also got to not only meet me, but I don't think she remembers early on, or she would remember early on when we had performed back at the Starlight. Long story short, you know, things happened very quickly. And you got to understand, Selena's fame and all this major push came in 2 years only, okay? It wasn't a span of 10 years. Right. The 10 years before that was a lot of hard work, you know, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, you know, just to get to where she was at and to find the endorsement of a major corporation like, you know, Coca-Cola USA. I mean, that's huge. That's very huge, you know. Capitol Records. I mean, Capitol Records was prime. You know, they had six horses in their stable that they needed to launch out there. And you know what? We're going to make a label from day to night, you know, overnight. So it wasn't even about resources. It was more about timing. It was all about how do we get this out there, because there's a demand and we have the supply. How do we make the demand, you know, meet up with the supply? So again, I got to work with them fully loaded during the day, in the evening. And even then I still found a way to, you know, contribute to her fan club. And, you know, like any other working musicians and artists that are up and coming, they need certain things, you know, they need an image. They need to look what they are, you know. You can't be doing this, you know, small time lettering anymore. You've got to look as sophisticated as the brands that you represent, you know. So, Abraham and I grew in our relationship together, you know. He would see me here, see me there. We'd go out, you know. I mean, I remember real quick. somebody would call me at 3 in the morning, and my wife was like, "Who's calling you at 3 in the morning?" I said, "Don't worry about it. It's Abraham." Pick up the phone. Sure, it was Abraham driving from, on the bus, coming from Washington State or somewhere. And, "Hey, man, I just recorded this, and I want you to listen to this." And, that's how you build bonds with friends, by sharing, when you have that pride. Hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. He wasn't trying to be, flamboyant or anything like that. He was just very proud of what success he was feeling, and he wanted to share with those who understood where he was coming from. And to this day, I think we still have that relationship. There's some things that I do miss about Selena, but, I'm one of the most fortunate to have worked with her and laughed with her and partake of some great adventures as far as in the studio. I remember doing a TV commercial with her, with some other seasoned Latinos like Lisette Melendres and Lighter Shade of Brown and Timmy T and I don't know, a bunch of other guys in a spot called Latin House. And what made me so proud of her was that she came in, she did the first take and nailed it, man. No cut-ins, no nothing, no second takes. She was just there, man. She was for real. And I was like, yeah, man, this was awesome. This was really, really cool. So I will always take those things, and I'm very fortunate that Jose gave me the opportunity to do that album for her, and my signature has stayed with her since then.
Yeah, that's the very first album as well. You worked with 150 artists. I mean, that's impressive, and it just tells me, how busy you've been. Based on the years of music experience that you have under your belt now, where do you see Chicano music heading?
That's a great question. It depends on which day you ask me. Today you're asking me on a good day, where my headaches haven't been that bad. But look, Chicano, Tejano music is just one little avenue. If you look at Tejano music, or let's look at the brown people circle, okay? Mm-hmm. We're divided in so many things: politics and religion and family and tradition and so on and so forth. When you talk about music, we're just like a 1/32nd, 1/8 of that pie. So how do we know we're going to hold it up and what's going to happen tomorrow?
Correct.
I can only tell you that Tejano music will live. In what form, I have no understanding. I really don't. I try to think that we've made a difference as far as, when it comes to Tejano music here being a little bit more modernized, what I call retro, post-modern. Mm-hmm. But that's if you listen to today's radio across the country, you don't find that much horn arrangements. And if you do find horns, they're doing unison parts. They're not doing counter melodies. They're not doing, the things that other big bands would be doing, So when you say there's a horn band out there, yeah, there'll be a horn band, and they have to think a little bit harder. They have to work a little bit harder, because you're not solo. You're not just the accordion. You're everything in the accordion, So I couldn't honestly tell you where it's going. I just hope and wish and I ask the next generation to do your homework. Don't come in here and set a low standard, because that's what I've seen in recent years, without being too facetious about this. It's like, hey, if you're going to be something, be the best. And if you can't be the best, then don't get up yet. Practice. Keep going at it until you are the best. Because you don't represent just yourself and your ego. You represent a population of people that work hard to be here. They earn the right to be here. Generations after generations, people, protested and they marched and they worked in the fields for a reason. Not just to do it, not just for money. No. So that we could have education, so that we could better ourselves. And many of us have, and some of us we haven't, and that's okay. But if you're going to move forward to the next generation, the next 10 years from now, go kick some ass. You better do that. At least do that. That's what your grandparents brought. That's what your great-grandparents brought. Surely you can match that. Surely you can.
We've got some comments here where people are chiming in, and Lydia Hernandez wants to give you a shout out, and the Latin Breed a shout out, and says that the Latin Breed has been with us and is still part of us. She's a Tejana, and there was a term that you used, a couple of words that you used that, are you there? Are you on the line still?
No, I'm right here. My computer's just having a hiccup.
Okay. You used a term that, while you were talking, I was paying attention to some of the trigger words, and something that you said that, it's a very macho industry. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh my God, yes, yeah. And you know what? You picked the right chord today on that. No, really, because I guess, look, and I think some people relate to this. Some people say, this guy's full of it. As you mature in your 40s, your 30s, your 40s, man, you're not paying attention to what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't. You're just out there, you're living life. Hanging with the boys. Look what I got. Look what I'm driving. Look at all of this.
Okay.
As you start hitting your 50s, you see that immortality. You see that you're winding down. By the time you hit your 60s, you're feeling it. Whether it be in your knees or your eyes or diabetes or whatever it is, your mindset is different. And it's more like, okay, what am I leaving behind? And I'm not talking about just a legacy. I'm talking about really, have I moved the needle? Have I helped somebody do something?
Right.
So one of the things that we've never looked at wholeheartedly, and it has to do with the macho setting, is that we've not been very inclusive. We've been so exclusive in the Tejano field and in the Tejano culture sometimes that we forget that the women are the ones that actually work harder than we do. I learned that directly, and I saw it directly with Abraham. All the guys, at the time, the Grupo Mazes and the Mafias and on and on and on, all of these guys. Yeah, it was easy to gather and, let's go do this, let's go do that. But the women, what happened to the Lauras of the world? What happened to the Selenas of the world and the Shelleys and all of that? They had to struggle harder than we did just to let them in, just to open up. And at a point in time comes where you say, you know what, I had it with this. I'm as good as these guys. In fact, I'm probably even better sometimes. I outsell these guys, And you have to stand up to that at a certain point, and you have to recognize it that, you know what, this isn't about male, female thing. This is about music. This is about culture. This is about people, That's how we need to evaluate ourselves and understand, but you can't bring drama to this either. You can't just, you have to respect what's there. There's a standard. There's a culture. There's a hardworking people. If you're going to be part of them and represent them, do it with dignity and respect, with tradition. Respect tradition, if nothing else. If you can't do anything else, just do that. But that means on both sides of the world, too, You still open the door for a woman. You still do all of these things that need to be done. Why? Because that's how we were taught to do those things, and we should never miss that.
Well,
we should never put that behind us.
Thank you for that, and it's nice to see that you say things like that, because I think, men need to know and respect women, and I, for one, am proud of you with regard to your works with Selena and Laura and the Lauras and so forth, and that is something that you get to, reflect back on and say, I helped young women try to, go to the next level in their music career, and that's something to be commendable about. So thank you. And I think women are getting fed up We're getting involved more in the arts and entertainment, whether it's script writing, movie writing.
Yes.
And
yes.
What would you like to say? We've got 5 more minutes. What would you like to say to the audience that is burning in your heart, in your soul, a message you want to talk about? And I do, by the way, I do want to have you on my show during the year of your 50th anniversary. So, but just to kind of wrap things up, what's burning in the way of a message that you want to relay?
My message to this day right now is more focused on baby boomers.
Okay.
Baby boomers sometimes are thought of as being irrelevant, and we're not. You know what? We come in all sizes, colors, flavors, financial situations, you know, the ones that planned, the ones that didn't plan. But we're still at the same time, we have so many commonalities. We're still young at heart. We still love to go out and remember when we were 18, 19, 20, you know, because that lives in us. Nobody can take away that from us, okay? So that's our mission with the Latin Breed, to reconnect to those who have that affinity for our music. But at the same time, you know, we're here to open it up to the millennials and let them understand, what are these guys doing, you know? How can a band be together for 50 years and not make a dent? It's impossible. We've moved some people. We've made some great friendships. We've had some great times. We've had some not so great times, you know. Some of us are disappearing, you know. We're returning back home where we need to be, you know, where we came from. But it doesn't mean that we're irrelevant or we forget or we leave them behind. Nothing like that. We are about the spirit of who we are. You know, we're still alive. We're still doing what we love to do. Music is what we love to do. You know, we love to bring that music to wherever you're at. We don't care if you're in Saginaw, Michigan, or you're in Toledo, Ohio, or you name it, man. Valfurias, wherever you're at, we will go and have a good time and show you exactly what 50 years sounds like today, you know, and hopefully the next generation will take it up. I know there's a lot of tribute bands out there. It's not the same thing, but you know what? If that's a close second, I'll take that over karaoke any day. That's it.
That's right. The tribute bands are not the genuine, the real thing. And by the way, Charlie Rodriguez with Latin Breed is listening. Shout out to Charlie Rodriguez. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you're enjoying this interview. And we're going to have the Latin Breed back again. And again with Juan Isaac. You know, I'm sure you're going to be getting some messages from some listeners and fans who are going to want to hit you up to make sure that you play next year near their city as you approach the 50th anniversary. And if you have to drive more than 50 miles, I'm telling you, it's worth it. I've done it before. I lived in El Paso. I went to go see the Latin Breed in the deep of winter in Alamogordo, New Mexico, just to go see them for one night on a Thursday night. So, you know what? It's worth it. Trust me. And then Lydia Hernandez is chiming in saying, you're never irrelevant. Thank you for your contributions to our gente. Your music has helped shape our culture. And maybe the next time around we can talk about your Chicano activism. I know you are in activism and have done some work for one of the Castro brothers in San Antonio. So thank you for that. And to my listeners, to reach the Latin Breed or Ruben Cubillos, please contact him at 210-722-1392 or visit them on Facebook under The Latin Breed. And they're very, very quick to contact you. Again, they are approaching their 50th anniversary. And to make sure that they don't miss your city, you know, hit them up and let's work together to make sure that these legends are heard in as many places as possible next year. Thank you for
I couldn't leave without saying hello to my mom. My mom's still out there in El Paso, and my brother and all my familia, to the Cubillos family out there and to the Lopez's out there in Angleton, Texas. I got to say a shout to them. I love my mom. I miss her dearly, but I think God put you where you need to be at, you know. And I got to tell you, I've had some opportunities to return home, and my heart is here. My family's here. My son is here. My wife is here. My home is here. So, and my music is here. So this is where I'm going to stay until my last days, you know. So.
Very good. Thank you again, and can't wait to have you back. And tune in for our final show of the first part of the season before we go on summer break. We are going to have the deported veteran Hector Barajas live in the studio. We're also going to do a Memorial Day, an award presentation to him in Phoenix at the American Legion Post number 41 next Monday, and we're gonna end this first part of the season with a bang. And thank you so much to everybody at the Latin Breed. I love you, and thank you for everything that you've done for the gente. Thank you.
Well, thank you, DeeDee. We appreciate it, and we look forward to you real soon. If we come anywhere near Phoenix, we're calling you, and you're buying us a Whataburger.
Right, I'm buying you dinner. That's fine. Ándale. Gracias.
Ándale, ándale pues. Adiós.
Osvaldo says bye.